Great David Byrne. Talking Heads. Hey, that's Money Call. Welcome back to the Dennis Miller Show. In our segment right here, we're going to talk to former Chief of Staff to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, ask him about the events on the ground in Jerusalem yesterday. This is George Birnbaum. George, how are you?
I'm okay, Dennis. How are you today?
Fine. Saddened to hear that things seem to have tamped down there for, God, I don't know. When was the last time we had an event like that in Jerusalem?
It's been quite a number of years, although I was on the phone with the mayor of Jerusalem yesterday while this was all unfolding, and he said something that really rung true. He said, sadly, the people we're dealing with have an uncanny way of reminding us who we're dealing with every once in a while. And thankfully so, that that we are reminded as to what we're dealing with when it comes to Islamic fundamentalism.
Boy, living in that demented cul-de-sac over there with some of those guys, it really does lead to a wise stoicism in a way, and a wise and unfortunate stoicism,
exactly.
I would imagine. Tell us about the 5 W's of the bombing. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Does it have any fingerprints on it, or what do they know?
Security forces are tracking it down. This happened in the main entrance to Jerusalem, right when you're coming into the city. There's a central bus station on one side, a convention center on the other. It is a major thoroughfare. You have children taking buses to school, people going to and from work. It is the central location of foot traffic in the city. So it was clearly targeted for that reason, and as we all know, terrorism is indiscriminate and tries to terrorize, obviously, and as the mayor has said yesterday, which I fully support and agree with, the best way to combat this is to get back to life as normal as soon as possible and not let them terrorize us.
George, and we're talking to George Birnbaum, former Chief of Staff to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you think that, the deviancy is so foreign to like a regular person's mind? We think of it as like random and satanic and all that, but is it as simple? Is there like I mean, figuratively speaking, some sort of marching orders for the day from the head office to a nut that this is the day we do it, and that it's that simple? Or
it's just it's part of the DNA. I mean, if you were to drive up there right now, as you and I are speaking, you wouldn't even notice anything had happened yesterday.
Wow.
You may see some shattered glass where the bus stop was or something like that, but people would still be waiting in the same place to catch the same bus number. I mean, it would be incredible.
The Jews, unfortunately, over the decades, all too familiar with the shattered glass, I would say.
Unfortunately, that's right.
We're talking to George Birnbaum. George, now in your notes as I was reading, you think Libya is I assume a lose-lose proposition for us or for the Allies, or explain your feelings on Libya.
What I see happening, and I kind of sometimes look at the Obama White House. It's like watching a bad episode of Get Smart with Obama as Maxwell and maybe Hillary as Agent 99, who's the more competent, smart one. But what's happening is that we're charging it, and this is partly the fault of the Bush doctrine. As much as I love W, I think he had this wrong. We're so eager to support democratic movements, and yet what these movements are is I don't think they're fundamentally based on a desire for democracy. I think what you see is, what you really have is a desire for jobs and economic growth and economic stability. It's manifesting itself in the idea of let's kick the dictator out and let's bring our own democratically elected leadership in. The strange idea that democracy will bring economic freedom, and it doesn't necessarily do that in these regions, because most people will run for office to only enrich themselves, not their own people.
Right.
And what's worse is that what's going to end up happening is you're going to have just what happened in Gaza, which was, Condoleezza Rice and George Bush pushed for elections, and we got Hamas, which did a few things. One, it created a terrorist state next to Israel, and two, it made it impossible to make peace with the Palestinians because you don't have a homogenous Palestinian entity with which to make peace with. You've got Fatah in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. In Lebanon, you have Hezbollah with 10% minority in the government, but yet they control the government from within, which means Iran controls Lebanon. And I think what you're going to see happen very quickly over the next couple of years is, whether it's in Libya and Tunisia and Yemen and Jordan and Syria and other places, is you're going to have these quote-unquote democratic movements take place. You're going to have elections. You're going to have Islamic fundamentalist parties, maybe not taking majorities, but very forceful minorities in these governments. And you're going to have 6 or 8 or 10 satellite states of Iran operating within the Middle East, North Africa, controlling a much greater percentage of the world's oil. And eventually, you're going to get to Saudi Arabia, where American troops are going to have to put boots on the ground to defend the oil fields in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? That means the infidels are protecting Mecca. You know what happens after that?
Impossible. That's what got Bin Laden off the porch, I guess, was us going into Saudi Arabia. George, are you saying that we should not construe these our Rorschach or our call on them as democratic movements, but the fact is they'd be more than happy with a strongman if the trains ran on time?
You know, if you had 7% unemployment, they'd be happy with Gaddafi. They'd be happy with Mubarak. They'd be happy with whomever. I think democracy could then come because once you have economic stability and you have economic growth and you have people who have something to live for, the idea of supporting these Islamic fundamentalist groups becomes a moot point because they don't need them to survive. Right now, they need organizations like Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood for their $300 or $500 a month just to eat. Mm-hmm. If you have economic stability, you don't need those people anymore. That's the reason these groups thrive in these nations, because they provide an income for people who have no income. So if you had, economic stability, you had 7 or 8 or 6% unemployment, then you could have elections, and guess what? You would have the moderates holding power, not the fundamentalists.
God, you just explained the palliative for our country too, by the way.
Yeah.
If we could get it down to 7%.
Right. Well, that's just it, right? I mean, we should
probably be less
unrest. Democracy, see what it's brought in this country in terms of unemployment.
Well, at least it's a glorious mess here. Over there, the fix is in on the game.
Right.
All right, Georgie, good to talk to you. George Birnbaum, former chief of staff to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. For the rest of the